Long ago, the Irish gods, the Tuatha De Danann, were defeated by mankind, and they fled under the hills to their fairy forts. But the world still hummed with the remnants of their power as a harp string plucked by a harpist's finger. And it was a time of great magic, heroes and giants. Colin, the mighty smith, made his home here under the hill of Slieve Gullion, along with his two beautiful daughters. Malacra, the elder, was tall, dark and proud, while the younger, Anya, was fair-haired and gentle. The sisters had always been the best of friends, but one day, in the forest, they encountered Fionn McCool, the young hero. And both women immediately fell in love with him. And from that day on, they were no longer friends, they were rivals. I love Fionn more than the whole world, said Malacra. Well, I love him more than the whole world, the sun and the moon, said Anya. Well, I love Fionn more than the whole world, the sun, the moon, the stars and the seven seas. Well, I love him more than the whole world, the sun, the moon, the stars, the seven seas and all the creatures in them, including our own father, said Anya. And so the two sisters fell to arguing senselessly about who loved Fionn the most. One day, as usual, they were talking together about how handsome Fionn was. I have never seen a man with such a noble bearing, said Malacra. And his hair is so fine and silky. Yes, agreed Anya for once. Yes, I've seen many men with hair of red gold, but Fionn McCool's hair is white gold. Yes, it is almost white, said Malacra. Oh, no, said Anya. White is the colour of an old man's hair. I could never love a man with white hair. Is that so? Said Malacra, and she turned away, already plotting how she could have Fionn to herself. Malacra found one of the great De Danann druids, and she begged from him a spell to help her have Fionn for her own. She climbed to the top of Slieve Gullion, and she cast the spell out over the waters of the little grey lake there, and then she waited. At the hill of Allen, Fionn's home, he was out hunting with his favourite hounds, Bran and Skjolin. And a fawn sprang up in front of them, and the hounds gave chase with Fionn McCool galloping after. They chased the fawn northwards and northwards again until they reached Slieve Gullion. And at the top of Slieve Gullion, the fawn disappeared. Fionn thought that it was the low cloud, or perhaps the furze bushes, that hid the fawn from view. But in fact, the fawn had really disappeared because it had been called up by the same magic that the druid had given to Malacra. Fionn searched through the rocks and the whin bushes looking for the fawn, and he came across the tiny lake nestled in rock underneath the summit of the mountain. And there on a rock at the lakeside sat a tall, dark, beautiful woman. Now, had Fionn met this woman anywhere else, he would surely have been struck by her beauty. But meeting her as he did, alone on a mountain top, crying as though her heart was going to break, he had no choice but to ask her what was wrong and to offer her help. I have lost my precious gold ring, the woman sobbed. I leaned over the water to watch my reflection as I combed my hair, and it slipped from my finger into the lake. And it was more precious to me than anything because it belonged to my dead mother. Have no fear, said Fionn. I will fetch your ring. and he plunged straight into the cold depths of the lake and swam until he found the ring and came out holding it aloft. He stepped foot on the shingle of the shelving bank to hand the ring to Maileachra, and he was overcome with weakness and collapsed against the rock. With a great effort he raised his head to look at the woman, but she too had disappeared. Fionn saw his own reflection in the lake and understood with a shock what had happened, because staring back at him from the dark waters was the face of an old man, withered and wrinkled, and with white hair, and the hands wrinkled and shaky. Bran and Sciolin whimpered and whined around his legs, not understanding what had happened to their master. Legs too shaky to stand, so Fionn was forced to sit down. He sucked his thumb, the source of his great wisdom, and he immediately understood that only a woman from the fairy mound of Slieve Gullion could have done this. Back at the hill of Allen, Fionn's warrior companions, the Fianna, became worried when Fionn did not return from his day's hunting, and they tracked him and his dogs north and north and north until they too came to Slieve Gullion. And there they saw a withered old man lying on the ground, whom they would have ignored had it not been for the fact that Bran and Sciolin mounted a faithful guard over him. Still they would have passed their captain had they not noticed that Fionn's spear lay by his side. In a quivering voice, Fionn explained everything, and the Fianna took off their cloaks, tied them to spears, and made a stretcher for him. They carried him to the great mound at Slieve Gullion, and they dug down for 3 days until they reached a mighty chamber, and there a woman appeared before them. Fionn peered at her with watery eyes, but this was not the dark woman of the ring. This woman was fair-haired, but just as beautiful. "My sister has done you a great wrong, Fionn," said Anya, "hoping to keep you from me. If you wish to have your youth and vigour restored, drink from this, for I too have friends who understand magic." And she handed Fionn a drinking horn of red gold. Fionn drank deeply from the horn, and his straight limbs and his energy and his strength flooded back into him, though his hair stayed as white as it had been. "Drink again, Fionn," said Anya, "for it is true. I do not like a man with white hair." But Fionn shook his head. "I will keep my white hair," said Fionn, "to remind me to think more carefully before leaping into lakes, and so that I may remember how it feels to be weak and helpless, so I may be kinder and gentler in future." Fionn's hair stayed that silver-white colour until the day of his death, and they say he was as gentle with the old and frail as he was fierce with his enemies.